Hello students, good morning. Let's come back to our chapter 16, climate. The other day we studied about, as we were studying about climate, we saw that what makes the seasons to get changed and then the variation in the climates of India. Today we are going to study about the factors that affect the climate. So please open your textbook and take page number 122. To some of you, those who have old textbook, it may change the page numbers. Open your textbook on page 122 and let's begin with factors affecting the climate. There are some factors on the surface of the earth which control the distribution and amount of elements of climate. These are called climatic factors. Following factors affect the climate of India. Following factors affect the climate of India. Which are they? They are latitude, distance from sea, altitude, and atmospheric pressure and winds. You will have to remember these 4 points because this question is always asked in the exam. So you will have to learn this question by heart. So let's see. Now, what is it about latitude? Now, I am sure students, we have studied about latitude and longitude when I was teaching you chapter 13. And we saw in that, I explained it to you what you mean by latitudes and what you mean by longitudes. So, let's see. Climate type on the surface of the earth changes according to the latitude of the place concerned. There is a distance of about 111 kilometers between two successive latitudes. Sun rays fall vertically over equatorial region, hence it is very hot throughout the year. India is divided into two zones of different climatic conditions, that is torrid zone and temperate zone. So students, what is that? India is divided into two zones and torrid and the temperate zone. Do you remember this picture and the page? We have studied already in the chapter 13. Now, what do you mean by longitudes and latitudes? I had explained you over here. So right now we are talking about the latitude. We are talking about the latitude. See, this is what our India is. Now, turn the page. Look here, I had explained to you about the Tropic of Cancer and we had seen also about the Capricorn. Now, here what we have to see. What is it said? There is a difference between two latitudes and it is about a distance of about 111 kilometers between two successive latitudes. So we are talking about these latitudes. We are not talking about the longitudes. We are talking about the latitudes, these lines. Okay. So what is it? That sun rays fall vertically over the equatorial region. This is the equatorial which passes, and so the sun rays falls vertically on what? Equatorial region. And so hence it is very hot throughout the year. India is divided into two zones of the different climatic conditions. Two zones, we can see this Tropic of Cancer over here. That is these two torrid zones, which is one is towards the north, towards the south. And so therefore, temperature varies in the different places. Now, what are we seeing? We are talking about how and what is affecting the climate. So latitude is one among it. We saw the first point that temperature, the factor what is affecting is the latitude. And we saw it that the torrid zone and the temperate zone. These are the two zones. Then, which is the second factor that is affecting? And that is distance from sea. Now, what do you understand by the distance from sea? The distance of landmass from sea is another important factor affecting the climate. So what we are seeing, students? The distance from the landmass from sea is another important factor affecting the climate. Now you have seen when we were studying, I had taught you that India is surrounded by coastal regions, and that is that we saw that Arabian Ocean, Bay of Bengal, and then we saw about Indian Ocean, Bay of Bengal and Arabic Ocean. These are the three seas or the oceans by which the India is surrounded. And so, now look here, what is it said that the distance of landmass from sea is another important factor affecting the climate. Water and land have different capacity to conserve and release the solar heat. Water and land. Make a bracket. Water and land have different capacity for what? To conserve and release the solar heat. As a result, coastal regions experience temperate climate, while the climate becomes continental in the interior places away from the sea coast. The climate of Mumbai in India is temperate as it is near the sea coast, while it is continental at Nagpur or Delhi as these places are far away from the sea. Look here, students. We have seen this figure also, this map also we have studied. Arabian Ocean, and then here we have Indian Ocean, and then the Bay of Bengal. And so you see what is said about Mumbai we are talking about. And so Mumbai is close to Arabian Ocean, Arabian Sea, whereas Delhi is far. And so the temperature over there differs because Mumbai is close to Arabian Sea. So the regions which are close to the ocean, what type of climate do they experience? They experience a temperate climate. Make a bracket, students. So the distance of landmass from sea is another important factor. As we saw, as I showed you, Arabian Ocean to Mumbai. And then the climate, water and land have different capacity to conserve and release the solar heat. As a result, coastal regions experience temperate climate, while the climate becomes continental in the interior places away from the sea coast. Now, they have given the example when they said about the Mumbai, though Nagpur is in Maharashtra, it is far away from Mumbai, and so therefore the temperature over there is different. So temperature over there is like of the continental at Nagpur and Delhi, and these places are far away from the sea. Then see the third point. What is that? The third one is altitude. Now what do you understand by the altitude? Let's study and see what is altitude. As we go higher in the atmosphere from sea level, air pressures and air temperature decrease. As we go higher from the atmosphere from the sea level. Now for example, I showed you that the Indian Ocean was over there below, where the South India and all, that is a part. So as we go higher from the sea level, air pressure and air temperature decrease. Then what happens? While higher relief gets more rain. Due to the high altitude, the Himalayan peaks remain snow covered throughout the year. So make a bracket, students. Why the Himalayan peak remains throughout the year covered with the snow? It is because the altitude is very high, and so Himalayan peaks remain snow covered throughout the year. Moist air cools down when it rises and gives rain. So students, the air cools down when it gives rain. With increasing altitude of the mountains in Meghalaya, the rainfall increases. In general, air temperature decreases at 1 degree Celsius for the ascent of 165 meters, or by 6.5 Celsius for an ascent of every 1000 meters from the surface of the earth. So students, what is it? The higher you go, the better or the cooler temperature you experience, and therefore when you see that Himalaya and all, the temperature is cooler over there. So what is that they have said over here? That as you ascend, it's given over here, in general, as you ascend, air temperature decreases 1 Celsius 1 Celsius degree for the ascent of 165 meters, or by 6.5 degrees Celsius for an ascent of every 1000 meters from the surface of the earth. So the higher you go, the temperature differs. Then the fourth point is atmospheric pressure and winds. Now what is this about atmospheric pressure and the winds? India falls in the path of northeast trade winds. India falls in, underline that, falls in the path of northeast trade winds. These winds originate due to tropical high pressure belt in northern hemisphere. Students, we are talking about right now, about the atmospheric pressure and winds. And what happens, India is in the path of the northeast trade winds, and the winds originate due to the tropical high pressure belt in the northern hemisphere. You remember the southern hemisphere and the northern hemisphere when I was explaining about the globe, I had explained it to you. And so, these winds deflect due to Coriolis force and blow towards equator. In past, these winds were utilized for oceanic trade. So these are called trade winds. Students, why were they called as the trade winds? It can be asked to you for 1 mark. What happened is that, which winds we are talking about? You'll have to begin the answer from here. India falls. India falls in the path of the northeast trade winds, and these winds originate due to the tropical high pressure belt in northern hemisphere. These winds deflect due to Coriolis force and blow towards equator. Where do they blow? They blow towards the equator. In the past, these winds were utilized for oceanic trade. So these are called trade winds. As these winds blow over landmass, they contain less moisture. The Indian Ocean is located to the south of India. Arabian Sea lies to the west, and Bay of Bengal is in the east. Due to this vast water mass, winds passing over them absorb moisture and bring rain in India. Students, we just saw the map. Over here you saw about the Arabian Sea, you saw Indian Ocean as well as Bay of Bengal. So as we are surrounded, see this southern part of it, as we are surrounded by this, the winds that bring, they also, therefore, what happens, the vast water mass or the winds passing over them absorb moisture and bring rain to India. So that is how we get the rain in India. Turn the page. During winter, high pressure develops on the north of Himalayas. Cold and dry winds from this region blow towards the oceanic area where low pressure is created. Make a bracket, students. During winter, high pressure develops to the north of Himalayas. Cold and dry winds from this region blow towards the oceanic area where low pressure is created. During summer, low pressure develops due to high temperature over Central Asia and Indian landmass. At this time, high pressure prevails over Indian Ocean in south. So winds tend to blow from high pressure over Indian Ocean to low pressure in North India. We are talking what happens due to the wind, what happens due to the high pressure during summer. Low pressure develops due to the high temperature over Central Asia and Indian landmass. At this time, high pressure prevails over Indian Ocean in north. So the winds tend to blow from the high pressure over Indian Ocean to low pressure in North India. North India, suppose students you remember which states come. These winds are known as southwest monsoon winds. They contain moisture and bring rain in India. Students, because they contain moisture, they try to get rain in India. Sometimes a peculiar phenomena takes place over places located far from India, which creates temporary changes in the long-term climatic pattern. Phenomena like jet stream, western disturbances, El Nino, ITCZ have affected the Indian weather to a great extent. However, The monsoonal characteristics of climate of India remain unaffected. The monsoonal characteristic of climate of India remain unaffected. So students, you understand now how this altitude and this latitude, distance from sea and the pressure of the wind and all can affect the weather, affect the climate. The higher the altitude, the cooler the region is. The pressure is more. We saw over here of the wind. What happens? They also carry the moisture, and that is how they bring rain. So this we have finished today about factors affecting the climate. Today we shall study about the seasons of India. Okay? So I am going to stop over here. Please learn this question by heart.